3 cars on this list will outlast most modern engines you see rolling off dealer lots today. One of them regularly hits 300,000 miles, even when the owner isn't exactly perfect with maintenance. Another one is literally a Toyota, but people ignore it because the badge on the hood makes them nervous. And the last one was designed to survive abuse so extreme that most modern turbo engines wouldn't make it past warranty. I've been around cars long enough to see this cycle repeat itself over and over again. I've seen modern vehicles with 60,000 miles come in on a tow truck, engine lights flashing like a Christmas tree. And I've seen older, boring cars roll into the shop with 280,000 miles, leaking a little oil, rattling a little plastic, but still starting every morning like they're not done yet. Right now, people are overpaying for complexity. Turbochargers, direct injection, start-stop systems, CVTs, complicated emissions hardware. All of it sold as progress. But longevity? That was never the priority. Today, I'm breaking down 3 dirt-cheap cars almost nobody talks about anymore. Not because they're exciting. Not because they're pretty. But because they were engineered before manufacturers decided that squeezing out the last 2 miles per gallon mattered more than surviving 20 years of real-world use. I'm saving the most misunderstood one for last. Let's start with the one that quietly refuses to die. Number 3, Buick LeSabre, 2000 to 2005. This is the car nobody brags about. Nobody posts photos of it online. Nobody dreams about owning one. And that's exactly why it lasts forever. The Buick LeSabre from the early 2000s came with the GM 3800 Series 2V6, and if you've ever worked around cars for any length of time, that engine needs no introduction. It's one of those engines mechanics don't talk about because there's nothing dramatic to say. It doesn't explode. It doesn't self-destruct. It doesn't surprise you. It just keeps running. I had a 2002 LeSabre come into the shop not long ago with just under 280,000 miles on the odometer. Original engine. Original bottom end. The owner was convinced it was finally giving up. Said it felt tired. Said it didn't sound right. We put it on the lift. Checked compression. Checked oil pressure. Checked cooling. You know what was wrong? A worn belt tensioner and a cracked vacuum line. That was it. A couple of inexpensive parts, an afternoon of work, and the car drove out like it had another decade left in it. Because, realistically, it probably does. The reason the 3800 Series 2 lasts is simple. It's overbuilt in ways modern engines just aren't. It uses a cast iron block, not aluminum. It runs low compression, meaning less internal stress. It's naturally aspirated, so there's no turbo heat cooking seals and bearings. And it uses a pushrod design, which means fewer moving parts compared to complex overhead cam setups. GM didn't design this engine to win awards or impress reviewers. They designed it to move large sedans smoothly, quietly, and reliably for as long as possible. Power was conservative. RPMs were low. Everything about it was designed for endurance, not excitement. Now, everyone brings up the same criticism, so let's address it honestly. Yes, these engines are known for intake manifold gasket failures. And here's the part people conveniently leave out. It's a well-known issue, with a well-documented fix, and it's relatively cheap compared to the catastrophic failures you see in modern engines. Once it's repaired properly, it usually doesn't come back. It's not a recurring nightmare. It's a known checkpoint. Compare that to modern turbo engines where a failed turbocharger, high-pressure fuel pump, or carbon buildup issue can cost thousands and come back again. The LeSabre also has another advantage people don't talk about. Most of these cars were owned by older drivers. They weren't raced. They weren't abused. They weren't modified. They lived quiet lives doing exactly what they were designed to do. That's how you end up with a car that quietly racks up 250,000 to 300,000 miles while everyone else is arguing online about extended warranties and engine recalls. Right now, clean-running LeSabres sell for $1,500 to $3,500, and I've seen solid ones go cheaper than a set of tires on a modern SUV. If you want the cheapest possible long-term transportation and you don't care about image, the LeSabre is one of the best-kept secrets still left on the used market. If you care about modern tech, sporty handling, or impressing anyone, this isn't your car. And it never tried to be. Number 2, Pontiac Vibe, 2003 to 2010. This next one is one of the greatest pricing mistakes in the used car market. Because this car is a Toyota, and people refuse to treat it like one. The Pontiac Vibe is a rebadged Toyota Matrix. Same platform. Same drivetrain. Same engineering. Built alongside Toyota products. And under the hood sits one of the most proven four-cylinder engines ever sold. The Toyota 1.8 L1ZZ FE. I had a customer come in looking at a Pontiac Vibe with around 190,000 miles. He was nervous. Said the mileage scared him. Thought it might be a risky buy. I asked him one question, "Do you know what engine this has?" He didn't. Once I explained that it was the same engine used in Corollas and Matrix models all over the world, his entire attitude changed. Because that engine has a reputation that speaks for itself. The 1ZZ FE uses a timing chain, not a belt. That means no scheduled timing belt replacement every 90,000 to 100,000 miles. It was designed with conservative power output, excellent cooling, and tolerances that favor longevity over performance. These engines have been used globally in taxis, delivery vehicles, and commuter cars that rack up enormous mileage. Yes, early versions of this engine had oil consumption issues. That's true. And here's the part people don't think through. Most of the bad ones are already gone. The Vibes you see still driving around today? They either had the issue addressed or were never affected to begin with. Problematic engines tend to remove themselves from the population early. Survivors are survivors for a reason. And here's where things get interesting. A Pontiac Vibe usually sells for $2,500 to $6,000. While the identical Toyota Matrix often costs $2,000 to $4,000 more. Same car, same engine, same reliability, different badges. That badge alone scares buyers away, and that fear is exactly why this car is such a steal. You're getting Toyota reliability without paying Toyota resale prices. If you're a student, a commuter, or someone who just wants a car that starts every day and asks for very little in return, this is one of the smartest buys you can still make. If you want luxury, quiet cabins, or brand recognition, look elsewhere. That was never the point of this car. Now, before we get to the last car on this list, you need to understand something important. The reason the first two cars work isn't magic. It isn't brand loyalty. It isn't luck. It's design philosophy. They were built in an era when engines were expected to survive neglect, heat, long idle times, and owners who didn't read the manual. That mindset doesn't exist anymore. Modern engines are engineered to pass emissions tests, hit fuel economy targets, and look good on spec sheets. Longevity became optional. And that brings us to the most misunderstood car on this list. The one people laugh at. The one people say is outdated. The one that embarrasses modern engines without even trying. Number 1. Ford Crown Victoria. This car wasn't built for comfort. It wasn't built for style. It wasn't built to impress anyone. It was built to survive. The Ford Crown Victoria sits on the Panther platform, a body-on-frame design that most manufacturers abandoned years ago. And that one decision alone explains why these cars keep going when everything else gives up. Body-on-frame vehicles absorb stress differently. Suspension components wear independently. Impacts that would twist a unibody car just get shrugged off and repaired. Under the hood is the 4.6-liter modular V8, specifically the two-valve version. This engine doesn't make crazy power. It doesn't rev high. It doesn't chase efficiency records. What it does is run, over and over and over again. Police departments didn't choose this engine because it was exciting. They chose it because it could idle for hours, sit in traffic in extreme heat, and still take off at full throttle when needed. Taxi fleets chose it for the same reason. If there was a weakness, fleets would have found it fast. And they didn't. I've personally seen Crown Victorias with 350,000 miles that still had better compression numbers than modern four-cylinder engines with half the mileage. Usually, the car doesn't die because the engine fails. The body rusts. The interior falls apart. Electronics stop working. The engine just keeps waiting for something else to give up first. One of the biggest reasons for that longevity is what the engine doesn't have. There's no turbocharger, cooking oil, and seals. No direct injection system clogging intake valves with carbon. No CVT belt begging to be replaced. No experimental technology trying to do 10 jobs at once. It's just a large displacement engine operating well below its limits. The cooling system is oversized. The oil capacity is generous. The internal components are designed to handle abuse that modern engines simply aren't tested for anymore. These engines were expected to survive long idle periods, sudden load changes, and constant stop-and-go driving. And when something does wear out, it's usually simple. Alternators, water pumps, suspension parts, all cheap, all widely available, all designed to be replaced without removing half the car. That's the other thing people forget. This platform was designed to be repaired, not replaced. Parts are everywhere. Junkyards are full of them. Aftermarket support is massive. You don't need specialty tools or dealer-only software to keep one alive. Now, people always ask the same question. If these cars are so good, why did they stop making them? They didn't stop because the car failed. They stopped because the world changed. Emissions regulations tightened. Fuel economy standards became more aggressive. Fleet contracts shifted. Consumers decided they wanted touchscreens instead of durability. None of that has anything to do with how long the engine lasts. In fact, the reason these cars are cheap today is the same reason they were retired. They don't fit modern expectations. They're big. They're heavy. They're not efficient. And because of that, people overlook them. That's where the opportunity is. You can still buy a well-maintained Crown Victoria for less than the cost of replacing a single turbocharger on a modern engine. And once you do, there's a good chance the engine will outlive the rest of the car. You can still find Crown Victorias for $2,000 to $5,000, and some of those will outlast brand new engines. If you want something that can take abuse, survive neglect, and keep running long after the novelty wears off, this is it. If you care about fuel economy, modern tech, or parking in tight spaces, it's not. The bigger picture nobody talks about. Here's the part people don't like hearing. Mileage doesn't kill engines. Design choices do. Modern engines fail early not because they're driven too much, but because they're engineered too close to their limits. Higher compression. Smaller displacement. Forced induction. More heat. Tighter tolerances. All in the name of efficiency. These older engines lasted because they weren't pushed. They had margin. They had room to breathe. They had designs that assumed real people would own them. People who forget oil changes, drive short trips, idle too long, and don't warm their engines perfectly every morning. The Buick LeSabre survives because the 3800 Series 2 doesn't care if life isn't ideal. The Pontiac Vibe survives because Toyota engineered the 1ZZ FE to work everywhere, under all conditions. The Crown Victoria survives because Ford built it for the worst environments imaginable and gave it a drivetrain that barely notices the stress. None of these cars are impressive on paper. None of them win comparison tests. None of them trend on social media. But all of them expose the same uncomfortable truth. Older, simpler engineering often outlasts newer, more complex solutions. Who these cars are really for? These cars are for people who care about outcomes, not appearances. For people who want to buy once and drive for years. For people who understand that depreciation doesn't matter if you're not selling. If you're the kind of person who plans to keep a car until the wheels fall off, these designs make sense. If you flip cars every few years, chase the newest tech, or care about resale value, they don't. And that's fine. But don't confuse modern with better. And don't confuse old with unreliable. Final thought. If you're shopping for a used car right now, and everyone keeps telling you to, just buy something newer, remember this. Newer doesn't mean stronger. Newer doesn't mean longer lasting. Newer just means more complicated. The cars that last the longest are usually the ones that don't try to impress you. Drop a comment if you've owned any of these. I want to know how far yours went. If this saved you money, hit like. If you want more straight talk about cars, subscribe. I'll keep saying the things dealerships won't. What you do with that information is up to you.